Welcome to Keep Smiling, the e-commerce customer experience podcast. Hello again, and thank you for being here. I'm your host, Ty Walters. Today we cover 5 best practices for your customer service email address. This is following the thread from e-commerce customer service in the previous episode 38, and today we're going to be talking about the number one, the primary means of communication when it comes to e-commerce, or I would say modern customer support. It's email, electronic mail, sending messages back and forth from buyer to seller, from merchant to customer to shopper. This is how we stay in communication. There's other modes of communication. We'll talk about those at another time. But when I think about the customer service that we deal with today, it's really email based, a lot of it. And if you have an email address already and a customer service team in operations, this is going to be a good episode to reflect on, is that email address the best it can be? Is it suited for what its purpose is, and is it set up right? So we'll be covering 5 tips on that. And then if you do not have a support email address yet, maybe you're in the process of opening your store, or you're not quite there on your website. When you do get to that point, you will need one. And so this will be a good episode to reflect on maybe what you want that to be when the time is right. So with that, one more thing. At the end, we'll have another challenge to action related to your customer service email address. This is to get us in the habit of taking action, not just consuming content all the time. So with that, let's start the 5-minute clock and get into 5 best practices for your customer service email address. The first best practice is use a unique support email. This is separating your admin communications, all the sensitive data, payment information, stuff about logins. We don't want that necessarily in the same mailbox as our customer communications. The number one reason is, at some point as your business grows, you'll begin to share that support duty, maybe outsource your customer service, and either of those actions are going to reveal all that sensitive data to people and parties that don't necessarily need to see that. So we recommend starting at the beginning with a unique support mailbox and address. That way, when you reach the time of expanding and sharing, it's all secure. Now, platforms like Shopify and Amazon, they allow different emails per function. And what I mean is, there's a customer service email in Amazon and a sender email in Shopify, and that's different than the admin emails that would receive billing and other sensitive data. So make sure we start with a clean slate, a segmented mailbox, and although it might be more work and set up at the beginning, it'll pay off down the road. So our second best practice is using a branded domain. 2 examples of what not to do would be something like yourbrand@gmail.com or yahoo.com. Now, SellerSmile uses @Gmail domains, but for the most part, they're not public facing. And the reason is, these are associated with free domains. They're not really secure. They're not identified with your brand. There's not a feeling of longevity there. And it's, anyone could sign up for this address, so I can't really tell who it is. Versus some of the green examples here, we have like help@yourbrand.com. That your brand part of the domain is the authoritative part. That's what I and others look for to determine whether or not this is legitimate. And I looked at Mr. Beast's Shopify store, and I haven't written in, so I don't know what his email address is. They're hiding it, but his domain is mrbeast.store. .store is the top level domain. Mr. Beast is that exact brand name match. And this looks authoritative to me, and I would mimic this type of example. Next best practice is using an easy and meaningful username. The username is the text that appears before the @ symbol in the email. And we have an array of examples here. And you can see each one of these are between like 4 and 8 or so characters long. They're really easy to spell, like help, team, hello, support. Those are obvious what they might be leading to, versus some other examples. But these are the most common ones we see and recommend and would use. And we also see some brands using a name like Ty at SellerSmile.com if I'm a face of the brand, and I would be, the face of the customer service as well. And this podcast has its own email. It's keepsmiling@SellerSmile.com. Keep Smiling is not that short, but it's meaningful, and it might indicate where this email would lead to if you ever write to us. That leads to best practice number 4, using a customer relationship management tool, or CRM. Now, this is sort of outside of the email address in and of itself, but I see it as how are we executing, how are we using that email address? And tools like Help Scout and pictured here, this is a screenshot of SellerSmile's dashboard, all of our activity from the previous year. And Help Scout shows us that we're dealing with over 113,545 messages. It shows us things like how many replies we're sending, how many were resolved on the first reply. So really helpful metrics that we don't get in our free Gmail and Yahoo inboxes. And not only that, but there's so many workflows and efficiencies and integrations with different apps. So we recommend when you're ready to upgrade to using a CRM. And best practice for customer support email number 5 is authentication. This is a standard, and especially since recent announcements from Gmail and Yahoo are now requiring this on even steeper levels, all sellers, all businesses should have their email authenticated with DNS records. And we're going to talk much more about this in the next episode. It'll be the main topic, email authentication with SPF, DKIM, and DMARC. We have a little diagram here to start to help explain that. They're acronyms, they can be kind of confusing, but it's pretty straightforward, and setting these 3 shouldn't take you longer than 15 to 20 minutes. So with that, we have 5 seconds remaining in our episode 39 challenge to action. I challenge you to audit your customer service email address. If something popped into your mind during this episode, listening or watching to this, maybe it's time to make that change in your email. Maybe it's time to separate that customer service inbox from your admin email. And if you don't have that email yet, think about when you do launch your website or store, would you like to display your email? What would you like that username to be? And how are you going to implement that? Email is the primary way that your customers and shoppers are going to get in contact. You're going to get all types of questions there. So setting it up right from the beginning is a big step towards a good customer experience. With that, we're going to wrap up the episode. Thank you so much for tuning in to Best Practices for Email and Customer Service Addresses. This is episode 39. In the next one, we'll be talking about email authentication. I'll see you there.